The small trading outpost on the edge of the galaxy was quiet, dusty, and forgotten. Cole, a human engineer and cargo pilot, stepped out of his old ship. Looking for food, fuel, and maybe some silence, his boots crunched on dry ground as wind pushed sand against rusted walls. He had landed here by accident, low fuel, and a damaged thruster forced him down. There were no friendly faces, no greetings. Only quiet eyes watching him from behind broken doors. Cole didn't expect kindness here, and he didn't plan to stay. He only needed a few supplies, maybe a map. Then he'd be gone. He walked toward the market area. It could be called that, just a few stalls and shadows. He wasn't looking for company, but company found him. A small voice called out behind him, soft but clear, human. "Are you single?" Cole turned around slowly, confused. A little alien girl stood there, staring at him with glowing blue eyes. Her skin was pale with a hint of silver. Her hair long, tangled, and white like snow. She wore a torn dress too big for her and looked hungry but proud. "What?" Cole asked, blinking, unsure he had heard her right. The girl stepped closer, not afraid. "My mom is really kind," she said seriously. "You have to marry her?" Cole didn't laugh. He didn't know if this was a joke, a trap, or some alien custom. He looked around. No one else was watching. "Where's your mom?" he asked slowly, unsure what to do. "She's at home," the girl replied, pointing past the ruined market. "She doesn't smile anymore, but I think you can fix that." She said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Cole scratched his head, unsure what to say. "Why me?" he asked. The girl shrugged. "You're the first human I've seen here in months, and you look nice." He could tell she was serious. Not playing, not pretending, and something in her voice, honest and full of quiet hope, stopped him from walking away. He knelt beside her, looking into her silver blue eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she said proudly, "and my mom's name is Scylla." Cole sighed. He had planned to leave this place in a few hours, but something about this strange, brave little girl tugged at him. "All right," he said softly. "Show me your home." Lyra smiled for the first time, grabbed his hand, and pulled him toward the far side of the outpost. They walked through narrow alleys, past broken homes and rusted machines. The deeper they went, the more silent it became. Cole kept his hand near his belt, ready to pull his sidearm if things went wrong. Finally, they reached a small shelter hidden behind some wreckage. It didn't look like much, just a broken building with a metal sheet covering the door. "This is it," Lyra whispered, suddenly nervous. "Please don't be mad at her. She's just sad." Before Cole could respond, the door opened. A tall alien woman stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock and fear. She had the same pale skin and silver hair as Lyra, but her face looked tired, like someone who had forgotten how to hope. She wore a simple robe, old and patched. Her eyes locked onto Cole's face, then dropped, as if she couldn't bear to look. "Scylla, this is the human I told you about," Lyra said softly. "He's here to help." Cole raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "Your daughter found me," he said. "I didn't come to cause trouble." Scylla didn't speak, just stepped aside and let them in. The shelter was small and dark, with only one broken window letting in light. There was barely any food, a single blanket, and a metal bowl with dry vegetables. Cole looked around and felt something heavy in his chest. This wasn't a trap. This was survival. They sat down together, in silence. Lyra served what little food they had, half for Cole, half for herself, none for her mother. Cole split his half in two and handed part of it to Scylla. She looked at it like it was gold, but didn't move. "I'm not here for marriage," Cole said gently. "Just here because your daughter asked me to come." Still, Scylla said nothing, only nodded slightly and stared at the wall. Lyra looked between them, hope in her eyes fading a little. "Please don't leave," she whispered. She needs someone to make her smile again. Cole didn't know what to say. He was just a traveler, not a savior. But in that moment, surrounded by silence, sadness, and a child's hope. He knew he wasn't walking away not yet, and that was the moment everything changed. The wind blew harder that evening, carrying dust through the shattered alleys like a whisper of danger. Cole sat near the corner of the small shelter, watching. The door? He hadn't slept. Not fully, not with a strange weight in the air. Something felt wrong, not with the girl or her mother. But with the silence around them, it was the kind of silence that hides secrets. Lyra had fallen asleep with her head on her mother's lap. Scylla sat still, not looking at Cole, not speaking. She hadn't said a single word since he arrived, but she hadn't asked him to leave either. Cole could see the scars on her arms, now old, deep, and not made from battle. These were the kind of marks that told stories without words, painful stories. Stories no one ever asked about. At sunrise, Cole stood and stepped outside for air. The sky was reed orange, and the ruined buildings around them looked like skeletons. He heard no voices, no traders, no ships. It was as if the whole outpost was holding its breath. He turned to go back inside, but then he noticed something strange. In the dirt, near the shelter's edge, symbols had been scratched into the ground. Alien. Symbols fresh and deliberate. They were shaped like eyes and claws. And one symbol looked like a broken ring. Cole didn't know what it meant, but he didn't like the way it made him feel. When he went back inside, Scylla was standing now. Awake and alert. She had noticed the symbols, too. Her hands trembled slightly. But she quickly covered them with her robe. "You shouldn't be here," she said at last. Her voice soft but sharp, like a whisper that cuts. Cole stepped forward, surprised to hear her speak. "I didn't come to cause problems," he said. "Your daughter asked me to stay. She doesn't understand what danger she brings." Scylla replied, her eyes not meeting his. "I'm not afraid of danger," Cole said. "But I need to know who made those marks outside." Scylla turned away. "They are warnings," she said, "from those who believe I betrayed them." Cole frowned. Betrayed? How? Before she could answer, Lyra stirred awake and sat up quickly. "Is he still here?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "You didn't scare him off, did you?" Cole forced a smile. "Still here?" Lyra beamed. But Scylla's expression didn't change. She looked like someone who expected disappointments, someone who had learned not to trust hope. Later that morning, Lyra insisted on showing Cole the other side. She took his hand and led him away from the shelter. Deeper into the ruins, they passed broken bridges, collapsed walls, and burned-out homes. This used to be a beautiful town, Lyra said quietly. "Before the war, before the betrayal, what happened?" Cole asked. "Everyone left," she said. "Some ran, some were taken, and some blamed my mom." Cole glanced down at her. Blamed her for what? "She was married to a human soldier," Lyra said, almost whispering. "When the war came, he protected us, but then he left." Cole stopped walking. "Your father was human?" Lyra nodded. "They said she chose the enemy." Everything suddenly made sense. Why the symbols were outside the house, why no one helped them, why Scylla never smiled. They reached a building that looked like it used to be a school. Inside, the walls were covered in drawings, faded now, but still visible. One of them was a drawing of a human man with dark hair, standing next to Scylla. The little alien girl in the middle looked just like Lyra. "That's him," she said, pointing to the man. "My dad." Cole stared at the drawing for a long time. He didn't know this man, but somehow he felt connected to this story, like fate had pulled him here for a reason. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes wide and hopeful again. "My mom used to sing," she said softly, "and dance and laugh all the time. But since he left, she doesn't do anything anymore," I thought. Maybe if she met another kind human, she'd remember how to smile. Cole knelt down and held her hand gently. "I'm not your father," he said. "And I don't know if I can fix your mom, but I'll try to protect both of you. For as long as I'm here." Lyra smiled again, and this time her smile reached her eyes for a moment. There was warmth again in the ruins, but as they returned to the shelter, a strange shadow passed overhead. A silent ship, black, sleek, and shaped like a claw, hovered just above the outpost before vanishing behind the cliffs. Sela was already outside, staring up, her face pale. "They found us," she said coldly. "The ones who want to take me away again." Cole looked at her, then at Lyra. He realized this wasn't just about smiles anymore. This was about survival, and he had just stepped into something far more dangerous than he ever expected. That night, Cole woke up to the sound of quiet crying. It wasn't loud, just a soft, trembling sound, like someone trying hard not to be heard. He sat up on the cold floor of the small shelter, blinking in the darkness. The moonlight came in through a crack in the roof, just enough to see shapes. Lyra was asleep under the blanket beside him. But Scylla was gone. He stood up slowly and stepped outside. The air was cold, and the wind carried sand across the ground like whispers. He followed the faint sound, walking carefully around the side of the building. That's where he saw her, Scylla, sitting alone on a broken stone, holding something in her hands. She didn't look like the woman he met before. She looked lost. Cole didn't say anything right away. He watched her, the way her shoulders shook, the way she held the object close to her chest. He took a step closer, crunching the dirt under his boots. Scylla turned quickly, hiding what she was holding then. Her eyes softened when she saw it was him. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he said gently. "You didn't?" she whispered, then looked away. "I can't sleep when the shadows come." Cole sat beside her, careful not to get too close. "What were you holding?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then opened her hands slowly. It was a small metal locket, old and scratched, but inside was a picture of a human man smiling, holding a baby alien girl, with Scylla standing beside them, her face full of joy. "That's him," she said quietly. Lyra's father. Cole nodded, now understanding more. He left. She looked at the ground, her voice barely above a whisper. "No. He died. They called him a traitor for protecting me. For loving me, they dragged his body through the town and burned our home." Cole felt a heavy pain in his chest, not from guilt, but from the unfairness of it all. "How did you survive?" he asked. "I ran," she said, "with Lyra in my arms. I never looked back." There was silence for a while, broken only by the wind. Scylla took a deep breath and said, "I stopped smiling that day. My daughter thinks I'm just sad." But the truth is, forgot how Cole looked at her carefully, his voice calm. "She thinks you're still strong. She brought me here because she believes someone can help you remember." Scylla gave a weak laugh, full of pain. "She's just a child, full of dreams, maybe," Cole said. "But maybe she's also right." Scylla looked at him for the first time, really looked at him. Her eyes weren't just tired. They were scared. "You're human," she said. "They'll come for you next, if you stay." "I've been through worse," he replied. "And I don't run from people who need help." Suddenly, a noise came from inside the shelter. Lyra's voice calling out softly. Scylla stood quickly, wiping her face, hiding the locket again. She walked back inside without another word, and Cole followed. The next morning, Cole helped Lyra cook what little food they had. They laughed quietly when he nearly burned the pot, and Lyra called him a fire disaster. Scylla watched from a distance, her hands working on sewing a torn cloth, but her eyes never left them for a moment. Her lips curved just slightly, not quite a smile, but close. Later, Cole explored more of the town with Lyra. They passed broken statues, empty homes, and names carved into walls. Lyra pointed to one named Scylla, an alien script with a dark mark next to it. That means exiled, she said. They marked her for loving wrong. Cole clenched his fists. Love is never wrong, he said. But in this town, the rules were different. As they returned to the shelter, they found strange footprints. Near the door, not from Cole, not from Lyrand, definitely not Scylla's. Bigger, clawed, and deep, as if someone heavy had been watching. And waiting, Cole went on high alert, scanning the area. He pulled his blaster from his belt and motioned Lyra to get inside. Scylla came out quickly, saw the tracks, and froze. It's them, she said. They're coming closer. Who are they? Cole asked. Scylla's voice cracked. The ones who said I should have died with him. They still believe I must pay. Cole looked at her, then at Lyra. He thought about the child's first words, "You have to marry my mom," and realized those words weren't just innocent. They were desperate. She didn't want a father. She wanted a protector, someone who wouldn't leave this time. No matter how dangerous things became, Cole took a deep breath and made a quiet promise. "I'm not leaving," he said, "no matter what happens," and deep inside. For the first time in years, Scylla's eyes softened not in fear, but in something close to trust. It started with a whisper, not a voice, but a feeling, as if the ruins themselves were speaking, warning, watching. Cole couldn't sleep. Not after seeing the clawed footprints outside. He stayed by the door with his blaster in hand, while Scylla and Lyra slept inside. But even the silence felt loud, as if something was crawling closer in the dark. A cold wind blew through the cracks in the shelter, and with it came the scent of ash and metal. Then, a flicker of movement in the shadows, quick, low, and quiet. Cole raised his weapon and stepped. Outside, scanning the ruins, nothing but his instincts screamed. They were not alone anymore. Behind him, the old wooden beam creaked. Cole spun around, aiming fast, but it was Scylla. Holding a thin glowing blade, her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "They always come at night," she said, always in silence, like ghosts. "Who are they?" Cole asked again, this time more firmly. Scylla stepped beside him, staring into the ruins. "They are the black-eyed," she whispered. "Outcasts like me, but worse. They serve no law, no home. They only destroy, and they want you dead." She nodded slowly. "Because I survived, and because a human once loved me." Cole's grip tightened on his blaster. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Suddenly, a sound, sharp and close, like metal scraping stone. Lyra cried out inside the shelter. Cole rushed in, heart pounding. She stood beside the wall, pointing to it in fear. Someone had carved into the stone while they slept, new symbols, fresh. And deep one of them was a claw ripping through a heart. Another was the word return, written in alien language. In blood, Cole checked the edges of the shelter, but the intruder was already gone. "They were here," he said, "inside. Watching us." Scylla picked up a piece of torn cloth left behind. It smelled of burned oil and rotting leather. Her hands shook as she turned to Cole. "They're getting bolder," she said. "They know you're here now, and they know you care." Lyra hugged her mother tightly, her small voice trembling. "I don't want them to take you," she said. "I already lost Dad." Cole looked at both of them and made a decision. He pulled out a small device from his belt, a portable shield generator, low charge but enough to hold off attackers for a while. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, planting the device near the entrance. "If they come again, we'll be ready." As the sun rose, the shelter glowed with a thin blue light from the activated shield. Cole walked to the edge of the ruins, with Scylla beside him. "This place," he said, "it's not just broken. It's haunted by what people let happen." Scylla nodded. "No one wanted to protect what was different. They feared our love. Feared what it meant. Do you still believe it was worth it?" He asked gently. She paused, then answered, yes, because it gave me Lyra. The rest of the day was spent quietly gathering supplies, reinforcing the shelter, and watching the cliffs. But that night, something changed. Cole awoke to a sound he didn't expect, singing, soft and low. Scylla's voice filled the air with an old lullaby, a language he didn't understand, but he understood the feeling. Lyra was asleep again, smiling in her dreams. Cole sat near the door, listening. He realized something important. Scylla wasn't broken. She was buried beneath fear and silence. But now, for the first time, she was digging herself out. But the peace didn't last long. Near midnight, the shield began to flicker. Cole grabbed his blaster and ran outside. Across the street, shadows moved fast. Low and hunched. 3 of them, black eyes glowing in. The dark claws scraping the ground, weapons in their hands. They hissed a language Cole didn't know, but he understood the message. Leave, or die with her. Cole didn't run. He raised his weapon and shouted back, she's not alone anymore. If you want her, you go through me. The creatures growled but didn't attack. Instead, they melted back into the shadows. A warning, not a fight, not yet. Cole returned to the shelter, his heart pounding. Scylla looked at him, calm but pale. They'll be back, she said. Next time, they won't give a warning. He looked at her. Then at the child sleeping safely. Then next time, he said, we'll be ready together. And in that moment, just for a breath, Scylla's lips curved into something she hadn't shown in years. Not a full smile, but real and close. A flicker of hope in a house full of ghosts. The next morning, the sun rose red. Not orange, not gold, just deep red. It painted the sky like blood. Cole stepped outside the shelter and knew. Today would not be normal. The wind was still, too still. The kind of quiet that always comes. Before something terrible, Scylla stood at the doorway, holding Lyra's hand. She didn't speak. But her eyes said everything. They're coming, and they won't hide this time. Cole had already packed his tools, charged his blaster, and checked the shield one last time. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but he hadn't forgotten how to fight. He looked at the 2 of them, this alien woman who never smiled, and her daughter who still believed in miracles, and he knew what he had to do. Around midday, a shadow fell over the ruins. A black crawler ship landed just outside the broken town wall. The engines let out a sick hum, cold, soulless, from it stepped 5 figures, covered in dark armor. 3 were clawed black-eyed raiders, and 2 were masked enforcers from the old colony. And one of them carried a metal chain, with Scylla's name carved into it. Cole met them at the center of the ruined square. He stood alone, his hands empty but his weapon holstered at his side. You're trespassing, he said calmly. One of the raiders growled, you're protecting a marked traitor. She's a mother, Cole replied. And she's under my care now. A tall enforcer stepped forward and dropped the chain at Cole's feet. The sentence remains, he said coldly. She defied her people, consorted with a human, and birthed a hybrid child. Justice demands she'll return with us. You are not part of this. Cole didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped on the chain and said, then make me part of it. Silence. One of the raiders hissed, reaching for his weapon, but the enforcer raised a hand, stopping him. You're willing to fight for her? He asked, almost amused. To die for her? No. Cole said simply, I'm offering something better. That made them pause. What could a human offer that would make us walk away from law? Cole stepped closer, never blinking. I will claim her, he said, loud and clear. By ancient interspecies right, she and the child will fall under human protection, and if you take one step toward her, Earth will respond. Gasps echoed from behind walls. from hiding villagers who had thought no one would ever stand up for Sela again. Even Sela herself, watching from behind a shattered column, covered her mouth in shock. Cole had just invoked something ancient, an old law written after the first human-alien treaties. A law that hadn't been used in years, but it was still valid. One bond, one claim, one shield of war. "You can't be serious," the enforcer growled. Cole stared him down. "Try me." The air grew colder. The black-eyed raiders stepped back, whispering among themselves. They knew what this meant. If Earth got involved, it wouldn't be just one human. It would be fleets, firepower, and fury, and all of it. For a woman they had already tried to erase. "We will return," the enforcer said finally. "With permission to void your claim." Cole nodded. "Bring whoever you want. Just know this, she's not alone anymore." The group returned to their ship and left without another word, as the black crawler rose into the air and vanished behind the cliffs. Cole finally let out the breath he had been holding behind him. Lyra came running, wrapping her arms around him. "You scared them?" she cried, laughing. "You really scared them." Sela walked slowly toward them, her steps uncertain. She looked at him like she didn't know who he was, any more like he was something new, something dangerous, something real. "You invoked a bond?" she asked softly. Cole nodded. "It was the only way to protect you." Her voice trembled. "But why? Why would you do that for me?" He looked her in the eyes. "No games, no tricks. Because your daughter asked me to make you smile again," he said, "and because no one should ever have to stand alone like you did." Sela looked down, hiding her face, but her shoulders shook not from fear, from something she had forgotten how to feel. And then it happened. She smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't long, but it was real. And it was enough to make Lyra cry with joy. The bond wasn't just a law. It was a promise, and Cole had just made it in front of the whole broken town. Now, there was no going back. Sela had never told the full truth, not to her neighbors, not to her own daughter, not even to herself, but that night. Everything changed. The bond had been claimed. The enemies had backed away. And for the first time in years, there was a flicker of safety, a fragile peace, but it was enough to open a locked door in her heart. She sat by the fire while Cole repaired one of the old solar lanterns. Lyra slept nearby, curled up in her blanket, smiling even in her dreams. The night was quiet, and the stars were clearer than they had been in a long time. "I used to sing under these stars," Sela said softly, her voice floating like wind. Cole looked up, surprised. "You did?" he asked, setting the lantern aside. She nodded, not looking at him. "My mother taught me." Before the war, before the walls turned to ash, Cole listened, saying nothing. Because he could feel if this wasn't small talk, this was the beginning of a truth that had waited too long to be heard. "I wasn't supposed to fall in love with a human," Sela said. "Not because it was illegal, but because it was feared. They said your kind would never stay, that humans run when things get hard." She looked at Cole now, her eyes tired but steady. But he didn't run, not at first. Cole leaned in slightly. "Lyra's father." Sela nodded. "He was a soldier. He came here to help rebuild after the colony wars. I met him in the market. He smiled like he belonged to the stars. I didn't trust him at first, but he was kind to everyone, even those who spat at his boots." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "He stayed. Even when others left. Even when my people called me a traitor. Even when we were forced to live on the edge of town. He still held my hand every morning." Cole felt something tighten in his chest. "He loved you," he said quietly. Sela nodded again. But tears ran down her face now. "And then?" "The rebels came," she whispered. "They said I had fed him information. They said he betrayed them for me. They beat him and burned him alive while I watched. Cole's hand curled into a fist, but he stayed silent. I didn't speak. For a year, she said, her voice shaking. Not a single word, but Lyra was just a baby. She cried every night. And one day, I sang again just to make her stop crying. She looked toward her daughter's sleeping face. Her voice. Gentler now. I kept going because of her. But I died inside. The moment they destroyed him, I buried the part of me that could feel joy. Cole sat beside her, unsure what to say. He had fought in wars, seen loss, known pain, but this was different. This was survival through silence. Pain wrapped in sin. Motherhood. Scylla turned toward him, wiping her tears when you stood in that square and claimed me. You didn't just protect me, she said. You brought shame to them. They thought I was worthless, forgotten, left to rot. And then you said I mattered. She paused, her voice now a whisper again. I haven't felt like I mattered in years. Cole looked at her, eyes steady. You matter to your daughter, Keith said. You matter to me. They sat in silence. But the kind of silence that heals, not harms. Then Scylla said something unexpected. I will fight. Cole blinked. What do you mean? She stood up, her figure strong now, her shadow tall against the firelight. I've hidden too long, she said. Tomorrow, I want you to help me rebuild the signal tower. I'm calling for help not just from humans, but from those who still believe in peace. Cole stood too, surprised but proud. You're not afraid anymore, he said. She shook her head. No, not with you here. And just like that, a new kind of bond was born, not just between a man and a woman, but between two survivors who refused to be broken. That night, the sky above the ruins shimmered with stars, and for the first time in years, the town felt alive again, but beyond the cliffs, in the darkness of space, a message had already reached the wrong ears. A new fleet was coming, and this time, they would bring fire. The alarm went off just before sunrise, not a sound, but a pulse. The old signal tower crackled to life, sending a faint blue light into the sky like a flare. It wasn't a call for war, it was a call for help. And someone had answered. Cole stood at the edge of the ruins, armor strapped on, blaster in hand. Eyes scanning the dusty horizon, Scylla stood beside him, calm, with a long scarf around her waist and a small dagger tucked behind her back. Behind them, Lyra hid in the shelter safe, protected, loved. They had prepared for this moment, but no amount of planning made the silence easier to bear. The Black-Eyed were coming, and they weren't alone this time. A small private warship hovered above the cliffs now, dropping black banners and elite hunters with glowing red visors. They didn't come to negotiate. They came to erase the last defiance of a woman who dared to survive. Cole stepped forward. As the leader of the squad approached, you were warned, the alien growled, armor clicking as he walked. You had a chance to walk away. I already did, Cole replied. Walked away from 100 battles. But not this one. Behind him, Scylla took a step forward, her voice clear and fierce. Tell your masters, she said, the girl they tried to silence is still standing. And she's not standing alone anymore. The leader raised his weapon slowly, but before he could speak, the sky changed. A distant thunder roared from above and through the clouds. A sleek silver vessel dropped into view. It wasn't large, but its markings were clear. Human Alliance Diplomatic Escort, Class 3. A voice echoed from overhead. Stand down. The bond is recognized under interstellar protection. Any hostile action will be met with force. The Black-Eyed hesitated. They hadn't expected this. They had expected a broken woman and a single human, not a signal reaching across the stars. Not a human vessel responding. Cole grinned slightly. Told you she wasn't alone. But the leader didn't drop his weapon. Instead, he shouted, Traitor blood stains this ground. If we die with honor. Then the first shot rang out. Sela pulled Lyra down behind cover as Cole moved in front, blasting two attackers with precise strikes. Sparks flew, dust exploded, and the old ruins became a battleground once more. Sela didn't hide. She picked up one of the fallen blades and fought quiet. Graceful, powerful, not like a soldier, but like a mother defending the only piece of joy she had left in the universe. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours in the end. Only two attackers remained, one crawling, bleeding, eyes wide with disbelief. The human ship hovered low, scanning for threats, ready to strike again. Cole lowered his weapon, chest rising and falling with heavy breath. He turned back toward the shelter and saw Sela standing there, blood on her arm, tears in her eyes, but smiling. Not forced, not faked, a real, deep, healing smile. "You made her smile, human," Lyra whispered from beside him, her voice full of wonder. "You really did." Cole dropped to one knee and held the girl close. "I just helped her remember who she was," he said softly. "She did the rest herself." Later that evening, the fires were out, the dust had settled, and peace had returned. The human ship had landed nearby, sending supplies and food. Lyra danced barefoot through the village ruins. Laughing, other survivors had begun to come out from hiding, staring in awe at the woman they once called a traitor, now standing tall like a queen. Sela stood near Cole, watching it all in silence. She turned toward him and asked the question again, but softer this time. "Why did you stay?" Cole smiled, brushing dust from his shirt. "Because a little girl asked me a strange question," he said. "And I realized the answer mattered more than I thought." Sela laughed, a full, real laugh this time, and it echoed through the ruins like sunlight breaking through a storm. "I don't know what comes next," she said. "Me neither," Cole replied, "but I'd like to find out." "With both of you," Lyra ran up and took both their hands, her eyes bright. "Does this mean you're my dad now?" she asked boldly. Cole paused, looked at Sela, and smiled. "Let's just say I'm not going anywhere."